inside track on the Tri-State. Here is Governor David Paterson.
512 from News Talk Radio 710 WOR. Back with you at 800-321-0710, 800-321-0710. We're going to talk about the president's announcement yesterday that he supports same-sex marriage. This was very good news to Brad Gerstman, who is a government relations lawyer and also a political consultant working for Gotham Government Relations right here in Long Island, New York. And Brad, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Governor. Great to be on with you. I love your show. I love everything you're doing, and congratulations.
Well, it's great to have you on. And Brad, you liked the president coming out, making this statement. Tell us why.
Well, first of all, from a personal standpoint, it's easy to understand because the country is moving in the direction of agreeing with marriage equality and finding that a good marriage is a good marriage is a good marriage despite the sexual orientation of the individuals. And also, I think also from a political standpoint, it was a good timing by the president. It's something that forces Mitt Romney to go back and assert his position, which is absolutely going to, I think, is going to hurt him in terms of the independents and the general voting public, aside from his right-wing, the far right.
What was noteworthy about what former Governor Romney said was not just that he was opposed to same-sex marriage, but that he's also opposed to domestic partnership that would allow for the same protections as same-sex marriage. See, the argument that people were trying to make was that marriage was kind of biblical and sacred, and people wanted to keep the name marriage, but they didn't have any problem with gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender couples living together and having the same protections. In other words, if you're sick in the hospital and you're not married, then the other family members could come in and have you banned from the hospital. I mean, it's very difficult.
Yes, and that's a great point. And that's where the compromise always was, is that, civil unions were okay, give everyone the rights that a marriage would have, but we will avoid calling it a marriage. But then, of course, as we moved along, people got more comfortable with marriage. States started passing the marriage equality acts and the like. But it also, from a political standpoint, it brings up such an interesting topic because it forces Mitt Romney to go back and have to stand with his original statements when he was in the primary and when he was fighting to be, as he would call it, severely conservative. And with that, he's saying that you can't even have the rights, that you really are not in any way, shape, or form married, and you don't have the rights that a marriage would afford the two people. And even furthermore, and I think this is something that's going to be uncovered as well, is, and then you mentioned that that they start saying it's a biblical thing and that marriage is marriage and we can't change the definition of marriage. Well, when you start bringing up religion and Mitt Romney, that's also a very soft spot for him and his campaign. Being a Mormon, politics are politics, and people's feelings are just the way they are, and it's going to be hard to continue to bring up religion when you're Mitt Romney.
Right. Nonetheless, marriage equality only exists in 6 of the states. It is certainly a very controversial issue. It's a moral issue for a lot of people. And given that, I thought that President Obama's statement yesterday would be considered courageous, whether you agreed with it or not. But all of his critics seem to be focusing on the political nature of it, the misstep allegedly by Vice President Biden, then the cabinet members joining in, then the call from former Governor Rendell for the president to clear up his views of this, and almost, an emphasis on the staging of the event, which, in my opinion, means that the country is closer to accepting gay marriage than I thought the country is, because most of the criticisms were about the production of the announcement more than what the announcement meant.
Sure. Well, I mean, you know, and you know as well as I do, you could just sum that up as just trying to find a problem with something that is popular amongst Americans. So once it's popular, now you're just going to say the process was bad, and clearly it's hard to make that argument. You know, it is
oddly enough. I don't think that the same-sex marriage is that popular. I didn't get the impression that at the time of the election, which is a few months away, that there will be any more than 12% of the states even have it. That's what I thought was really interesting about this whole discussion.
Well, it is, and as you know, when it's put on a referendum, it many times does not pass. I consider it a momentum issue. One of those momentum political issues where, in that, like, I put it in the category of almost like marijuana, where eventually all these things will become legalized and they will pass. Part of the other thing is when they put it to the vote of the people. What I found is sometimes it's on an off-cycle voting timing, and additionally, what happens is the radical right really get out the vote, and of course the left are a little bit, asleep at the switch and don't all pile out to vote as they should. So,
well, could that same scenario happen in November when the president runs for re-election?
Yeah, well, that is it. But I think if you look at the politics of this particular announcement by the president, yeah, he's trying to motivate and energize part of his base, and by doing this, it really does it. Now, keep in mind, as you know, the president, came out and repealed the policy in the military of don't ask, don't tell via executive order, and that motivated the marriage equality people and the gay rights people, but it really didn't go far enough for them. And leading into an election, it needs to be one of the planks of the platform of the Democratic Party going into the convention. And whether Barack Obama was going to say it or not, it was going to be part of the agenda for the Democratic Party at that point in time. So he might as well have made his affirmation of marriage equality now, so he's able to...
A caller asked me yesterday how many Democrats, what Democrats oppose same-sex marriage. I am pretty sure that there's a good number around the country. What do you think the chances of same-sex marriage being an actual plank in the party platform when the convention is held this summer would be?
Well, I think it's certain that it'll be a plank in the platform because the gays are tremendous donors to the Democratic Party, so they obviously have a significant influence. It's not a significant amount of people, but it is, relatively speaking, a significant amount of dollars. Now, there are Democrats. Clearly, there are Democrats that are against same-sex marriage, but this is where, like anything else, it's a big tent, and we're going to need to all come together. But there's no question that at least in my mind, and everything that I've heard, is it's going to be a plank in the platform. I can't see it not. I just can't see it. The momentum is there. It's one of those. It's an inevitability.
Right. On one hand, the president said that this was something that his daughters would wonder why their friends are being treated differently based on their sexual orientation. But then on the other hand, he turned around and said, but I'd rather leave this up to the states. So if you're going to leave it up to the states, then you're not really putting it on the level of a civil rights issue. If President Johnson had ever said to Martin Luther King, I'm going to leave it up to the states, he'd have had a real problem. So I'm just wondering, what this constant refracting of his position is actually doing to his character. And I'll tell you why. Because a woman called up here yesterday. She identified herself as a lesbian. She was very happy that the president made the statement, but said she wasn't sure she was going to vote for him.
Well, look, if her sexuality means anything at all, she would vote for him, because the other choice is an individual who is anti-gay. So we would have that person would just be completely out of their mind and not seeing things straight. But I do agree. What has he actually done?
She laid her point of view out quite well, Brad. What she was saying was that she just doesn't trust when he says something that he really means it, but that it's just the political order of the day. And, of course, this is a man who was for same-sex marriage in 1996, took a detour when he went to the U.S. Senate, and then ran for president, opposed Proposition 8 in California in 2008, and now turns around and says he's for it. Now, look, I understand that presidents have traditionally not gotten out front of issues. One of the famous statements that President Truman made to civil rights leaders who told him how unequal accommodations and discrimination is terrible. And he said they said you need to pass laws to guarantee greater rights for people. And he said, good idea, make me do it. So I'm not saying that the president has to lead, but since this president has chosen to get into this fray, these are just some of the issues that he's facing.
Oh, absolutely. At the end of the day, what actually happened is he just affirmed his own personal opinion on the topic. That is all. He took no action whatsoever. He's not claiming that he's going to take any kind of action, legislatively or otherwise. But what he's doing is he just said he changed his own personal opinion on the thing, and he's leaving it to the states, which I think also from a political standpoint is again interesting because, states' rights prevail here, and, that's kind of a Republican thing. They would leave it for the states, especially when Mitt Romney is talking about a federal action by saying that he wants to change, put an amendment to the Constitution that a marriage is between a man and a woman. So this is something that's been left to the states, and the president was right in doing that. At the end of the day, if you are a proponent of same-sex marriage, yeah, it's very, very true that the president did actually nothing yesterday. But something, there is a leadership piece to it that I think is when the leader of the free world says that, this is his opinion and he feels good about it, that other people should feel good about it too. And I think that's important as well.
Well, we've been talking with Brad Gerstman of Gotham Government Relations. He is a political consultant and also a government relations lawyer. Well stated, Brad. We'll have you back on soon because there are a number of other issues going on in this campaign. We'd love to hear what your take on them is.
Thank you, Governor, and wish you much success in the future.
Thanks so much.